What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Welcome to this episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. I'm Matty P with Shannon White, my co-host as always. Global Perspective, we're about giving you the macro perspective on all things Pittsburgh Steelers. What was the next offensive position that we wanted to talk about in value and possibilities and where the Steelers could find, I guess this value, this production at a low cost on the offense? I mean, they're already at pretty low costs.
Yes. But when I say low cost, I'm thinking not just this year.
Yes,
but moving forward with youth, with talent, because I can't help it, guys. I still think about they're going to have to pay Wilson. They're going to have to pay Fields if either one of them's the answer. If not, they got to get somebody who is the answer, and that's going to cost. At least draft capital. It's going to be very expensive. Or if you get a proven guy, it's going to cost in salary.
Yep.
So regardless, they're going to need money. After this year, they're not going to be the lowest paid offense anymore. They're going to have to pay a George Pickens, which I hope he pans out and they have to pay him.
Yep.
That's what would be best for the Steelers. So that's why the guys we're talking about is hidden value that they can be there at an affordable price and be productive and be a part of this, hopefully, championship rebuild.
That's it.
So I guess next would be wide receiver.
Yep.
Now, there's some obvious guys. Roman Wilson, I mean, they picked him with the long term in mind.
Yep.
And I think that he could be a great wide receiver, too, to complement George Pickens' wide receiver one.
Yep.
But this year, Vance Jefferson is more of a – is it Vance Jefferson?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Van Jefferson.
Van Jefferson. I said Vance. That don't sound right. So Van Jefferson, yes. They kind of brought him in as to be this year's Allen Robertson.
Yeah.
And more of a proven guy. But you look at it, Calvin Austin III, who they did put I would call a premium draft pick on.
Yeah.
And because they expected him to be a contributor, he could do so much.
I still don't know how they picked him with a coordinator that didn't know how to use him.
Well, he had no clue how to use him, exactly. But they've got some other guys on down the depth chart. Quez Watkins. If the way this offense is set up, if Quez Watkins could come in and give them because he's been hooking up in camp already with Russell Wilson. Yeah. Russell likes to throw the deep ball. He throws a great deep ball. And Watkins is the guy that's been getting them.
Yeah.
Now, I want to see Calvin Austin do that. And eventually a Roman Wilson. They've got options there. But those two guys immediately come to mind. And I know they just signed Copeland.
Yeah.
And they've, these are some of the guys that's down the chart.
Copeland's pretty quick.
Yeah. If one of them guys like that can pan out and actually make the roster, is starting out initially on special teams, helping a lot there. That would be great. But Calvin Austin III this year, I think that's who they want to pencil in at wide receiver too. Scotty Miller is another guy who has championship experience with Tom Brady. Watkins has been to the Super Bowl with the Eagles, of course. But Calvin Austin has that speed, the versatility. You can use him in so many ways. And I'm hoping that with a competent quarterback and a competent offensive coordinator, he's the guy that can stick around to be in that. Eventually, I think Roman Wilson's going to be a wide receiver too.
Yeah,
it's going to take a little bit of time.
I even think mid-season, if he has a big preseason, I think Calvin Austin could have some stiff competition there. I mean, Roman Wilson,
but that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, but I think what a lot of people overlook is it's not that just Roman Wilson, played for Michigan and they won the thing. It's the blocking energy. It's the toughness.
Oh, he tries hard blocking, yeah.
And that's going to fit in the Arthur Smith offense. Like, it just is. So I think you're on the money there. Well, the Steelers have the third cheapest wide receiver room in the league at $14 million. to put that in perspective, because we are the global perspective, the Colts have the 16th, I think it's the 16th, but they're out middle of the pack wide receiver room, and they're spending $34 million a year. So they're spending more than double what the Steelers are spending at wide receiver. So it is a very cheap wide receiver room, and it will be cheaper for the fact that Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Quez Watkins all have veteran minimums. They're not on rookie deals, right? So their vet minimum actually makes them, more expensive. Like almost, for the cost of one of them, you almost get 2 rookie guys if they're late, or 2 undrafted guys. So very, very cheap room. Very cheap room.
Did you see on? I seen it on Twitter where Brandon Hook was wearing a Steeler hat today, filming an Instagram video or something, and everybody started losing their mind. I'm like, oh man, here we go again.
But see, the report yesterday was that like he'd spoken, sat down with the 49ers
and had a good meeting. Yes, it's all contract negotiation tactics. They're both doing this. The Niners drafted Pearsall. They're like, okay, we're not going to be held captive by any of these receivers. And now Hook talks about everything in the open on the social media. It's not the way to handle things. So it's all part of the negotiations.
Let's move across to we agreed we wouldn't go too deep in the quarterback. We've kind of covered that. And it's a statistical anomaly. Let's be straight.
You want to do tight end?
Yeah, let's do tight end.
Well, you know who I'm going to say is I'm a big Darnell Washington fan. Mount Washington, I believe that they underutilized him criminally last year, because you cannot do 4-yard turnaround, catch the ball routes. You're just not using the man right. That guy needs to build up his head of steam, hit the seams, do a crossing route, whatever. If anything, with his size, he's going to attract attention. You're going to draw the defense because people are going to pay attention to him.
Mm.
And then, especially if you can hit him 2 or 3 times a game in motion, in stride, the guy is going to be it's going to be hard to take him down.
Mm.
And I believe that Arthur Smith has big plans. I mean, even in the mini camp, they said he was throwing to him a lot.
Yeah.
And
other players are talking about him too.
Yeah, I mean, his teammates are talking about him like crazy. And I just think that that's the guy, he's going into his sophomore year, that if he can give them what I think he can give them, that is great value as you're trying to look to have that championship caliber team in the next few years.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the hard thing though is I think this is going to sound really critical, and who am I to say this as someone that's never played in the NFL, but think about Darnell, and you and I talked about the potential injury side of things with knees and stuff like that down the track. I'm going to put that to one side because, you can pull up a medical report.
You can't worry about the what ifs. Yeah.
I mean, I got spinal stenosis. You Google, you can't do this with spinal stenosis. You can't do that with spinal stenosis, right? And people effectively can't do anything but walk around the house with spinal stenosis. But what people don't realize is 10% of athletes at any given Olympics have some form of spinal stenosis, right? People can look at conditions and,
You can't worry about the what ifs.
Exactly. But I'm not sure that Darnell, I think for Darnell to be successful, he needs to be the number 2 at the tight end room. I'm not sure he's a number 1 on his own. I think he blocks very well. I think we can see him as a receiving threat. But obviously he's not the type of receiving threat that a Pat Freiermuth or even Pat Freiermuth and Kyle Pitts are very different, but he's not like a Kyle Pitts tight end, right? Like the bloke's a different type of tight end.
Well, he's just a big receiver, wide receiver.
Exactly. So,
but Darnell Washington is tight end too.
Yes, but that's my point. But what's going to be interesting of the long-term progression of Darnell is Pat Freiermuth comes off contract after the season, right? So how do they keep Pat Freiermuth there to attract some attention away from Darnell, but also to maximize the 2 guys at the safe field at the same time in that Arthur Smith offense. So I almost think, obviously, how Darnell plays is going to define, this type of season he's going to have. But he is going to benefit from having another tight end that can take that tight end number one position. And I would hope that the Steelers are going to re-sign Pat Freiermuth. However, I think that's going to be a real challenge when we talk about value, because is Pat Freiermuth going to play 17 games a year, 18 games a year? Is Pat Freiermuth, is he going to follow Ladarius Green, route out of the NFL? So these are questions. And I'm a massive Pat Freiermuth fan. I wanted the Steelers to draft Pat Freiermuth. I had money on them to draft Pat Freiermuth in the second round. It's not that I don't like Pat Freiermuth, but you got to strike this balance with Pat Freiermuth. And I think he's a leader. Like, Ben has said really good things about Pat, and and you kind of go back and as great as he was, imagine if he had Pat a little bit earlier. Imagine if he just had Pat in 2017, just another offensive weapon, right?
Well,
and so
if you listen to Heath Miller, who you can trust what he says. He's not going to blow smoke up anybody's rear. Heath Miller speaks highly of Pat Freiermuth.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, Freiermuth's only been held back by his offensive coordinator and not utilized in the middle of the field by his quarterbacks.
Yep.
Now, I think we're going to see different. But to keep Freiermuth at a good price, they need Darnell Washington to take some of these throws.
True.
And keep his numbers, because he could be behind Pickens, your number two producer through the air. Yeah. Now, he can still be that number two producer, but you take him down to, say, 70-some catches instead of 90 catches, and, 800-some yards versus 1,000 yards, you're going to keep his costs down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're giving 300, 400 yards to Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
And it also will hopefully keep Freiermuth out of positions, whereas Darnell Washington is such a huge man in the red zone, in traffic. He can catch it, whereas Freiermuth gets blowed up because he's a smaller tight end. And he has these concussion issues. So you can use Darnell Washington in ways you can't use Pat Freiermuth. And I would rather have two good tight ends, affordable tight ends, than keep Freiermuth and Darnell Washington never develop.
Then the question is, where we fit Connor Heyward into the mix, right? Because Connor Heyward, but the NFL doesn't usually list fullback as a monetary position, so we're putting him in the tight end bucket, right? I probably should have saved this for a show, and someone out there, the Steelers community, is going to.
But he is not a tight end. He is 6 foot. Maybe. He's too little.
Just humor me Well, then we either got to talk about him in the running back section, which we've passed, or we've got to talk about him in the tight end section. There's no separate H-back section in the NFL for salary cap.
But it's like Cordell Patterson.
Correct.
I mean, he's going to be somewhere in there as a fullback, H-back, whatever you want to call him. He's going to be down the list on the tight end, because I think he'll beat out Pruitt, I believe.
Same.
But I'm just saying that you can't just look at him. He's a footballer. He's a special teams guy. He does it all. Putting him in one position, it just don't work.
I know. But I actually wasn't going to say anything about him being a tight end, to be honest. So, your point. And I probably should have saved this to do it as a separate video, and I might do it anyway, just for kicks, because who knows who's made it to this part of the show. But Russell Wilson used a fullback a lot in the Seahawks offense. Like, the H-back role was used at times, and I think it's an interesting situation, because we've kind of wondered at times what the future looks like for Connor Heyward in this offense with Arthur Smith, and so I think that's an interesting element to this, because and the reason why I bring it up is that you talked about like the amount of catches. Like what's the number of catches that Connor Heyward might be in some ways almost taking from other people? I think that's kind of the interesting thing. And yeah, I just wanted to confirm which seasons it was. There was someone that the right guy that Russell Wilson used. I wanted to make sure I was right because I had a mental blank on whether he played in San Francisco first, Seattle first, but I was like, he had to play in Seattle first. But it's Michael Robinson, right? There are some real big plays from Michael Robinson, that and some really key plays at times for the Seahawks, when he was there. And I just think it's an interesting part because he had a lot, like it was from the rushing side of things, it was from the receiving side of things, but some really like key plays. And I just wonder, because Connor Heyward's, I think, probably a little bit more athletic as a receiver and a runner than Michael Robinson was. So as I say, I just wonder if there's a little bit more from Connor Heyward in all of this offense. And it goes back to what the concept of our show today is around the value, is that if you get any sort of production out of Connor Heyward, it's tremendous value for this offense because of how late, I think it was a 7th round pick. Yeah. So it's huge.
Look at how valuable he really is when you consider how many areas he contributes in.
Yeah.
At 2 positions on offense, on all the special teams units, just about. The guy's just a baller. He's those glue guys you got to have.
That's it. So I think it's going to be interesting from the Steelers' point of view of like, how do you like, and even his special teams contribution, his value, right? But we're talking about offensive.
Yeah.
We're talking about like offensive value. So I just. It's kind of the hardest thing about some of it is that it's just like we don't know who's going to be that star in that Arthur Smith offense, right? And that's the difficult challenge. But yeah, I think Pruitt's going to be hard pressed to make it. I'm going to be interested to see what else they do at tight end. I wouldn't put it past them to still bring in a tight end from outside as cuts happen. There'll be some tight ends cut. There's still a couple of teams that drafted 2 tight ends this year. There's other tight ends that were rookies last year. We know it was the best rookie draft class at tight end probably ever. And they're gonna have people they're gonna be able to cut now that they'd previously paid. So I think the tight end position is going to be an interesting one to watch at training camp too, because I think it's going to be really one where you're assessing who's fitting within the Arthur Smith offense, where are the gaps, how much are they even using the tight end position. And what does that mean as part of the overall offense? So definitely an interesting position to watch. Matty P with Shannon White, as always, go.